has happened this week tells us everything about our government today and the sheer dishonesty with which we're being led. So we knew that on Thursday, yesterday, the immigration figures would come out, both the gross and net figures, and we know how many people had come to settle in the country last year. What did the government do? Well, they knew these would be all-time records. So cynically, the government leaked to the media, oh, the figure could be net 800,000, maybe even 1 million. When it comes in at just over 600,000, we're all supposed to say, oh, well, that's all right then, isn't it? I mean, that's the cynicism with which they dealt with this announcement. Another point to bear in mind, had we used the same counting methodology as we've used in the previous years, the figure actually would have been 730,000. But no, they fiddled the figures. But let's take it as it is at the 600,000 net. That's 1.2 million new people settled in our country last year. That's a city the size of Birmingham. And who left? Well, actually, people leaving were those retiring to Spain, businesses fleeing to Portugal, to Dubai, elsewhere. If you think about the rate of demographic change, it is truly and utterly astonishing. But what really gets to the heart of this is the sheer dishonesty of both of our political parties. Blair started this. He opened the doors up unconditionally. He told us it would lead to an extra 13,000 people a year, and hundreds of thousands started coming. Understanding and knowing that the British public were not happy with this, David Cameron in 2010 promised net migration at tens of thousands a year. In 2015, he promised net migration at tens of thousands a year. And then in 2017 and 2019, in a Britain that had voted for Brexit, we were promised an Australian-style point system and promised control of our borders. Take back control. Do you remember? That was the slogan. And actually, it was borders that won the Brexit side, the referendum, and gave Boris Johnson an 80-seat majority, albeit I think I might have helped him a little bit with that, which at the time I thought was right. Now, well, I'm beginning, of course, to ask myself one or two questions. And when those figures of 600,000 come out, what happens? Rishi Sunak gives a speech and says, we're going to start cracking down on students that come to Britain and bring dependents with them. Well, why the hell in the first place were students allowed to bring dependents? Why the hell are students, after they graduated, allowed to join the workforce for a couple of years? Basically, you come to the UK as a student, you are here to stay, and whether they crack down on family members coming, well, we'll just have to wait and see. And what are the Australian-style point system? What did you think when you heard that? I know what you thought. You thought it means skilled people with absolutely no criminal record who'd pay their own health insurance and be a net benefit. That's how Australia has managed immigration. What have we done? We've set the salary threshold for those that can come for work permits under this points-based system. We've set it at below average salary. We've set it at minimum wage. So now anyone from anywhere in the world can come into Britain on minimum wage with very, very few skills and, frankly, economically, very little to offer. But here's what it's all about, really. Rishi says it's okay, we're going to deal with this now. The numbers are too high. He says there's pressure on the NHS, there's pressure on housing, there's pressure on schools. I've been warning about this for the last 20 years. And what's the worst part? The worst part is when Cameron promised tens of thousands a year, he was told by his officials it wasn't possible to promise that as EU members, but that's okay. You know, the public will think everything's going to be absolutely fine. And when Boris Johnson made the pledge in 2019, he told his ministers not to campaign on it because he didn't really believe in it. And when Rishi Sunak makes the same promises, why would you believe it? Even the Daily Mail, big Tory-supporting newspaper, today says, stop taking us for fools. This, folks, is the great immigration lie. You have been lied to at the last 4 general elections. You were lied to by senior Conservatives who campaigned for Brexit. They have no intention of reducing net migration into this country whatsoever. Their big paymasters in the giant businesses want as much cheap labour as they can possibly get. And not only is the face and shape of our cities and towns changing beyond recognition, but we have the biggest housing crisis you've ever seen. Do you know we need to build a new dwelling every 2 minutes just to cope with current levels of immigration? And if you want to get a GP appointment, that's going to get a whole lot tougher too. The quality of life of tens of millions of people, whether it's schools, health, housing, or even the traffic on the roads and the potholes, we have a population explosion in Britain, and it's damaging the quality of life for tens of millions of people. And we're being lied to. And the old excuse that Labour might be even worse, frankly, I don't think that holds water anymore. How much worse than this could they actually be? We've been taken for monks, we've been lied to, and I would suggest that the Conservative Party no longer deserve any confidence whatsoever. They are simply outright liars.